Welcome to the second video of the fly rod building series. In the last video we spined our blank, marked it 180 degrees from spine, quickly discussed the different components of building a fly rod, and we discussed different manufacturers' take on the spine and if you should build on a spine or if you should build on the straightest axis. I'm leaving all that to your choice. Me personally, I'm going to build mine where the guides are 180 degrees from spine. In this video we're going to be attaching the reel seat. We're going to be attaching the grip. And you're going to need in this video or to complete these tasks a reaming tool. You can also use a round file, and all this is used is to widen the center hole of your grip so it slides down appropriately on the rod blank. Go slow with this. You don't want to ream it out too much where it's loose and sloppy. Try to get a nice snug fit. And you're also going to need some masking tape. This is 1/2 inch masking tape. And you're going to need your epoxy, 2-part epoxy, that'll be used to glue the reel seat and grip onto the blank. At this point I've taken the butt section of the rod apart from the rest of it, and this is what I was talking about. I just took a piece of masking tape and marked the 180 degrees to spine. Now when this is attached to the next section of the rod, there is a corresponding piece of tape that gets lined up with this piece of tape. When I made this reel seat spacer, I know the inside diameter is 3/8 of an inch. Luckily, there is not that much play between the rod blank and the inside of the reel seat. So you want to remove that play, and how do you go about doing that is you take the 1/2 inch masking tape and you build up the thickness of the blank to match the inside diameter of your reel seat. I'll do that real quick and I'll be right back with you. Well, I've taken the masking tape and I've wrapped it around the rod blank, building up the diameter where when I slide the reel seat on, I feel a little bit of resistance, but I don't have to force it on. When it's all the way forward, I have no side-to-side wiggle in it. And basically I can hold it up by the reel seat without any epoxy, and the blank doesn't want to fall out. It's making enough contact to be stable and centered, but not too much contact where it's difficult to slide on or off. Now, because when the epoxy gets in these low-lying areas, there's a larger glue line between the blank and the reel seats. Larger glue lines have a tendency to be a little bit weaker, so I like to put at least 4 places build up with the masking tape to get that nice tight fit to the reel seat. There'll still be glue in between the masking tape and the inside diameter of the reel seat. I just don't want to put a piece at the very back and a piece at the very front, leaving all this void in the middle in hopes that it makes good contact with the rear seat spacer and lasts. Just my personal preference, but I like to have the multiple tight fittings between rear seat and the blank. So after we have our blanks built up with the masking tape to get a good fit to our rear seat, now we need to size the inside diameter of our grip to slide down the blank and make good even contact with the top of this rear seat. Since this rear seat's not inlet into the back of the grip, it's just going to come to rest on top of the rear seat. And to do that, you use a round file or reaming tool and slowly remove materials on the inside so you get a good tight fit. The grip, when it slides on, should be snug. No play, no wiggle in it. And I've already been working on this grip, so it's a nice tight, snug fit. And comes down and meets up with the rear seat, just like so. Now that I have the grip inside diameter worked to the proper diameter of the shaft or the rod blank, and I have the rod blank built up to make good contact with the inside of the rear seat, at this point we can go ahead and mix up our epoxy, apply epoxy, and go ahead and start epoxying everything onto the blank. Oh, real quick, I'm going to take one layer of masking tape just in front of my grip, and I'm going to mark the spine we are using for our guides. That'll give me 2 reference points, one here at the end of the blank and one just in front of the grip, to ensure that I get the rear seat lined up correctly with the spine, or 180 degrees of the spine, which in turn means we'll be lined up properly with the guides once we get those on. The epoxy is real simple to use for this. I use Pro Paste. It's a simple 1-to-1 ratio mix. And this material, you don't have to be exact with your 1-to-1 ratio. If you get a little bit more of one or a little bit less, it's not going to be detrimental to the bond. So I've got my piece of cardboard here. I'll mix up some, and then I'll get you in for a closer view of applying the epoxy and setting the rear seat as well as the grip. Okay, so I have my Pro Paste mixed 1-to-1 ratio. As I said before, I put a small piece of tape in front of where the grip ended and marked it with my corresponding spine mark. We already have the blank built up for a good fit between blank and seat rail. So I'm going to take some of the epoxy with a popsicle stick and start putting it on the masking tape and in the gaps between the masking tape. You want to make sure everything's nice and covered anything that smears out between the masking tape and real seat spacer will go in the low-lying area between the masking tape. Help to fill those in. Also ensure the back of the blank has some epoxy on it. And once you get everything nice and coated with the epoxy, we're going to spin the real seat or blank as we push the real seat up into position. Push it to the back is making contact with the blank, and this is the portion where the reel was set. So I'm going to turn the blank or reel seat and line that up with the marks I have for the spine or where the guides will go. And that looks pretty good to me. Now, since this reel seat connects with the, pushes up against the back of the grip, we're going to eventually put a very small amount on this lip. Now that the reel seat is epoxied in, we can start applying epoxy to the blank where the grip will go. The other good thing about this piece of tape up here is I know definitely do not go past that point with my epoxy, and actually I'm going to want the epoxy to end just before that piece of tape. You have plenty of time working with this epoxy. It's not like a 5-minute epoxy that you have to hurry up and get it done before it tacks up or starts to set. So I have a good coating of epoxy on the blank of the rod, on the blank. And we'll take this very small piece, this basically toothpick, and put a very small amount of epoxy on that lip of the reel seat. So when it comes in contact with the back of the grip, it'll actually adhere to the grip itself once dried and cured. Now that I have the epoxy in place, I'm going to put the grip in place. Now the epoxy will help it slide in place very smoothly. It's still a nice tight fit. Okay, before I get all the way to the very front of the reel seat, I'm going to take a paper towel and just remove some of the excess epoxy. Again, make sure the reel seat is pushed all the way up. And finish bringing your grip back to the front of the reel seat. Be careful not to push so hard on the grip that the reel seat pushes out. Once the grip is in place, I can still move the reel seat, and I'm going to ensure that it's lined up with my spine marks. Now that we have all that done, we're just going to set this to the side and let it set overnight and cure. Real quick, this is how I have it set up so it can cure overnight. I'm going to just leave it completely alone and wait until the epoxy sets. As you can tell, there's not an excessive amount of epoxy coming out the front of the grip or between the reel seat and grip. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude the second video in the series. Real quick, we just build up the rod blank, attach the reel seat. We size the grip to match the blank, and we've epoxied those in place. In the next video, we're going to measure our guide spacing and mark the blank, and I will show you how to wrap the thread for your guides. And then, till then, everybody be safe. Talk to you later.